All right, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Whatever time you're watching this video, y'all know who I am. My name is Richard Taylor, author of Brushes with Death, Wrongfully Accused, Son of a Preacher Man, and the latest book, Blue Lights, in my review. And the reason I'm holding this up, I haven't done this in a while, but I'm doing a little brief excerpt from my book because we have a situation right now going on in Wayne County, Goldsboro, North Carolina, where a sheriff's deputy was recently filmed assaulting a black high school science teacher at a high school basketball game after noticing that the teacher had a pocket knife on him, which was used for assignments for his class. Nevertheless, there's been public outrage. There have been people on both sides speaking about the situation, and from the video, you can obviously tell there was some conversation. Then you later see the officer grabbing Mr. Williams, and I'll say his name, Anthony Williams. Shout out to Anthony Williams, the black school teacher who was assaulted by the white deputy. Let's make things clear. That's what happened. So you see the video with him being choked and him being dragged out of the camera's view and him fighting to stay in the camera's view, and it just shows the brutality of or the aggressiveness of some law enforcement here. And the reason I got this book because I have an excerpt that explains what I'm talking about. Now, I have people on both sides of the situation, and some advocate for the officer, and then some advocate for Mr. Williams. But let me just read this to you, and then I'll commentate a little bit further. But this is just a page, so give me like a minute of your time. And this describes a situation that will explain my point of view when it comes to law enforcement in these kind of situations. Real quick, page 181 of Blue Lights in my review. Nevertheless, I stayed around my hometown. Eventually, I grew discouraged and began using alcohol and drugs again. Talking about myself here. Now, I started hanging around old friends and associates, getting high on a regular basis. One such circle was frequented by a member of law enforcement who often sniffed cocaine and drunk with us. I used to listen to stories how he and his white counterparts loved when a suspect would resist or run. He bragged about how they beat them with impunity. Even if the subject was incoherent, incapacitated, or mentally ill, it didn't matter. It was a mob mentality that overtook the officials, and they thought it was okay. Now, around that same time, a man was killed by members of city's law enforcement, basically the Wayne County Sheriff Department. They were called to the scene of a fight. When they arrived, there was no evidence of a fight, just an intoxicated man sitting on a porch. From media accounts, they tried to escort the man home. In the process, a taser was used. According to reports, this was the cause of death. The man had a previous heart condition, and the use of the gun allegedly sent him into cardiac arrest. The family of the deceased blamed police for the use of the stun gun, knowing that he had prior health issues from previous contact. However, and this is where the story gets real. However, I received a different version of events. Days later, at our usually drinking and drugging spot, the law enforcement officer attended. He explained how he was called to the scene and the guy tried to run. He relayed how he and the other officers jumped on the man and beat him. When he wouldn't stop moving, they beat him and stunned him until he lay lifeless on the ground. Now, from the look in his eye and the passion in his voice, I knew it was true. I could see how the officers got lost in the moment just by listening to him retell the story. And he justified his actions by saying that the guy shouldn't have ran and resisted. So, I'm going to stop right there. Now, that is a true story. This is not something that I heard the officer said or I heard from another person that heard that the officer said this. No, this law enforcement officer told me that with his own mouth. Now, I'm not saying this officer was a bad person, and I'm not going to, go deep into details, but in that moment, in his position as a Wayne County Sheriff Department, he was a bad person. He did a bad thing. He said he couldn't wait, in his own words. I didn't put it in the book, but and excuse my language. He said we fucked them up. We fucked them up. He didn't say we tried to restrain him. He didn't say we tried to get him under control. He didn't say I tried to de-escalate the situation. He said we fucked him up. And so when I look at the video from Anthony Williams' situation at the high school, I can almost see that same aggressive nature, that same attitude towards black men, because he was a white officer. But I can see now, Mr. Williams, I see the conversation. I probably know how the conversation went from my experience. The officer probably telling him, come outside, give me the knife. And Mr. Williams probably saying, no, man, I'm going to teach you. I'm going to take you to my car over here. No, man, give me the knife, or, I'm going to take you and escort you out around the back. And he was like, no, man, look, let me go over here. And then the officer pulls him. And 9 times out of 10, when you're in the right, if anybody touches you, you're gonna pull away. And that's just a natural human reaction when you don't think you've done anything wrong, whether it's the police, whether it's your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whether it's your homeboy. When somebody pulls you, your natural reaction is to pull away when you don't want to be pulled. So, and then when you see that, I think it was a slight pull, and then next thing you know, the officer gets aggressive, puts his hands around the man's neck, wrestles him, gets real aggressive with him, trying to throw him around. Now, if you watch the end of the video, now the video is on WRALWITN. If you watch the end of the video, you see other police running to the scene. They're not going to ask any questions. What they're going to do is jump on him as well. They're not going to ask who was right, who was wrong. The officer is always going to be in the right, because they're going to justify it by saying, oh, well, he had a knife and he wasn't compliant. The man is a 28-year-old teacher without a record, been teaching at the school 14 years. So therefore, there's many different sides to the story. They say maybe Mr. Williams could have handled it differently, and maybe he could have. Now, he's being held accountable for having the weapon on the quote-unquote weapon on the campus, but now who's going to hold the police officer accountable for excessive force? Now, understanding police officer, a police officer who knew who Mr. Williams was would have said, look, okay, Mr. Williams, go ahead. I'll escort you to the car. Or go ahead, just take the knife in the car, take the knife to the car and, come back. So that is the solution when you have people policing people that they do not know. The officer claimed that he was mistaken Anthony Williams for a student. So therefore, he don't know this man. If that officer knew who Anthony Williams was, knew he was a softball coach at the school, knew he, taught at the school, he would have known, okay, Mr. Williams, you use that? He probably said, well, put the clip in your pocket. Put the clip in your pocket, or just take it outside for Mr. Williams. And that would have been it. But that officer was definitely overzealous, but you see that mindset in Wayne Sheriff County departments prevalently. So I say all that to say this, and remember about 3 or 4 years ago, there was a high school basketball star. She was a girl. Her name was Zai, and you see the same thing at a fight that broke out at the Wayne County fair, where the officer tried to pull her away or something, and she pulled back, and the officer decked her in the face like she was a man, totally warrantless. So these officers know that whenever they feel that they have the right of way, that they're going to be able to do it in their community, their Wayne County Sheriff Department, and the city officials are going to stand behind them. But this is documented evidence. This incident happened for real, where a law officer bragged about beating a man pretty much to death. That man later died that I'm talking about. So this is not, this goes to show to the mentality of that. Officers are not above reproach. Yes, officers are on drugs. Officers do drink. Officers do steal. Their position above the law. So when you see videos like this, don't just automatically assume that the black man is wrong. And that's my assertion of the subject for now. But I got more in this book. So I'm not even promoting the book, but I'm just giving this example of a police officer who bragged about beating a man to death while getting high and snorting cocaine. So all officers are not up and up, but they wear that badge and they have the system and the mob mentality to stand beside them. But yeah, shout out to my brother Anthony Williams. I hope everything works out for you. And once again, if you want to know more, definitely about Wayne County, it's in here. Blue Lights in my review. It's in there. Peace.